Thanks, Chris. Hi, Jake. How are you?
Hi, Tiffany. How are
How's
you?
it going? Doing well. Hi,
Hi,
Yvonne.
how are you?
Doing well. Thank you guys for joining. So excited to chat with you. And we're wrapping up. We're the finale right now.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, let's kick it off. I encourage everyone to definitely look up your bios and the awesome careers that you guys have had thus far on the Brand Innovators site. Would love to kick it off by just hearing a little bit more about your work. Yvonne, if you want to start, everything that you're working on, your role, and then Jake after you, after that.
Sure. Well, thank you for inviting me. Always a pleasure to be to be with Brand Innovators. I'm with Avocados from Mexico. I'm the head of digital marketing for Avocados from Mexico since 2014. They brought me in to build the digital marketing practice from the ground up. So there was nothing. It's an organization that was created actually in 2014, a few months before I joined them, and I have been for almost 7 years now building what it is today, Avocado from Mexico, and very proudly I can say that is it has become a benchmark in the digital a digital benchmark in the fresh produce industry, and I oversee everything that it happens in the small screen, from web development and the usual SEO, SEM, social media, etc., all the way to the most sophisticated stuff like consumer data platform and data and the development of our first party data strategy, etc.
That's awesome. I know there's a lot that we'll ask in a bit about digital and the way you guys are looking at your consumers and stuff. So would love to hear from that. Jake.
Good afternoon. I have to point out that we're talking about avocados and tacos, and it's lunchtime out here in California and margaritas, and so this is opportunistic here. You invited me because we talked about a book that I just launched about 2 months ago called The Big Shift: Redefining Marketing in Multicultural America. And Ivonne and I have worked together a little bit, and I've known her and love AFM as a brand, and they do amazing work. After spending close to 30 years in the ad business, I started thinking about how much time I've watched the industry sort of act so slowly towards the demographic changes. And the best way that I can describe the big shift is really that the industry over the last 3 decades has taken 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And so the progress has been so incremental. I don't feel like companies are monetizing brand innovation. I mean, I don't think that I don't really understand why. I understand why. They're obviously interested, and it's much easier to monetize the status quo than sort of rebuild and fly a plane and start going into different directions in mid-flight. That's much more difficult. And so the big shift is about elevating and integrating the multicultural consumer into mainstream marketing, and there's a lot of implications that come out of that.
I love that. To kind of dive right into marketing and the way that we're looking at reaching different consumers and a changing landscape. Yvonne, how has Avocados of Mexico adapted their strategies to the various types of consumers that you guys have?
We are a very research and very insight driven organization. We have over in the 7 years that the organization have existed, we have over 150 research and syndicated research. I mean, we have tons of research. We have a group within the organization in every area that is works with as a centralized team with the digital researches and the brand researches and the shopper researches. So how we adapt, because we kind of we can anticipate what is coming, because we keep our finger in the pulse of that, the evolution of the consumer. And like what Jack was saying before, because I think we both started around the same time. Not to say that it was long ago, but long time ago, but it was, enough time ago that we saw how the industry has evolved from targeting Hispanics in the two networks that are traditionally Hispanic, and you're done with your Hispanic plan. And the segmentation is so much more complex than that. So like, for example, how do we evolve? Because we're constantly measuring the consumer preferences and reacting quickly. During the pandemic, when the pandemic started, I think that our shift took about a week. In 1 week, we scrapped TV spots that were not relevant. We built new campaigns. We built in 9 days our most successful digital campaign ever, which was Cinco de Mayo from 2020. We delivered 6 billion impressions, social impressions. And what we did is scrap what we have. We throw away a TV spot that we have created, because the environment of the TV spot, obviously before pandemic, happened in a hospital. So as you can imagine, not a good theme. And we recreated a digital campaign completely new, which was Homemade Cinco. And it was the most successful. I mean, we invited consumers to prepare their guacamole for Cinco de Mayo at home, and to share it on social media, to participate, to win prizes. We immediately switch our entire creative, and instead of saying avocados are so great, is thank you to the first respondents. Don't forget to wash your hands, wash your avocados. We shift at a speed that was absolutely amazing. And I think that's part of what keeps us at the forefront with what is happening, the evolution. The multicultural marketing is not an exception. We see where that segment is going, and we see how it's evolving. And like Jack mentioned, we see how it's blending, and it requires more than a simple media plan based on language to really reach them with relevancy.
Yeah, I know, Jake, I mean, you have so much experience in understanding, when these sort of shifts need to happen, and like how marketers need to be thinking about their very diverse and intricate consumer set, and not just in one lens. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, it's interesting. What Ivonne just said about language. It's above and beyond language. It's really interesting that there's like a narrative that the industry keeps, reinforcing. And then there's always the consumer narrative, and they don't always align. The consumer doesn't think about language. Like, I've never heard, unless you ask the question, do you prefer this in language, or do you want labels in language, or do you want, right? Like, that's not what they talk about. They don't talk about language preference. And that's the disconnect that I have so much. The work that Avocados from Mexico, and I'm not here to sort of, co-interview, but I think the work that you're doing, Ivonne, is really, it's brand driven, right? It's consumer driven, and that's what you're telling us. You're telling us that the research is, across every discipline within the organization, and you're moving with fact-based insights, and so, the question, going back to your question, Tiffanie, we need to just kind of understand the shifting, demographics. We got to understand that we compete at the local level, at the hyper local level. These big cities are multiculturally driven. LA is 60 or 65% Hispanic. The overwhelming majority of it is US born Hispanic. Chicago, Atlanta, Washington, DC. I mean, those are cities that are driven by African Americans, right? So so we don't win at the state level. We don't look at, the US, unless you're comparing the US to a country or a territory around the world. So we got to think about how we have to compete in the 21st century. And we got to understand, and really, in my mind, we have to reset the mindset. We've got to sort of push reset and look at the world, with more agnostically, and much more, with the consumer at the forefront.
I love that, and wholeheartedly agree. I know that this is never more relevant. I want to say in the times that we are right now. I do want to touch a little bit about retail strategy, because I'm sure, I mean, there's so many audience members out there that are listening, and there's a lot that can be done on social, and we'll dive more into that as well. But from a retail perspective, Ivonne, what kind of changes have you had to kind of understand, and what do those strategies look like, given the past year with COVID and all types of things going on the supply chain, I'm sure?
So the first that I need to say is that we were lucky because we were working on developing our e-commerce strategy even before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we were right there in the middle, almost ready to launch our e-commerce strategy. And think about it, we don't sell avocados. We say jokingly when we talk about it, but we don't sell avocados, and we're not from Mexico. We are, and that's true, we are a marketing company that that represents growers, packers, and distributors of avocados from Mexico. They sell, we do the marketing. So we don't sell anything directly, but we develop our own e-commerce for us, and it's a very unique approach. So we made our channels, we built bridges in our channels to move the consumers from the inspiration stage, which is what marketing does, and branding, and to the platforms, the transactional platforms in the e-tailers where they can actually shop for avocados. So when we did this research, we saw that 8% of all the avocados are sold through e-commerce. And that was very surprising, because we know, based on research, that consumers like to touch their fresh products when they purchase that. They want to pick the product, they want to touch it, they want to feel it. They don't want anybody else doing it for them. So what I was surprising is that when we compare with the growth in the food and beverage category, the food and beverage category is in 6% and avocados is in 8%. So that was the first surprising fact. And then when we look at what happened with COVID, the growth that we were supposed to see in 2025 just happened here during this year, this pandemic, in the middle of the pandemic. So it accelerated everything. So that's the first huge shift. So in my team, I opened a new position. I have a new, well, it's not, she worked with us before in shopper marketing with our organization, but it was moved to my department as a director of e-commerce marketing. And we have done so much in 9 months that is unbelievable. We have increased the traffic to our avocado page in Walmart, for example, by over 200%, only by customizing the page with health and wellness messages, etc. We became the first product brand in the history of Walmart.com on having a customized product page. We're running a campaign with Instacart. It was a pilot, and they invited us to join that pilot, and I'm seeing return of investment of 20 times. There's amazing the opportunities in this space that we, it's hard to prioritize because there's so much to do, and the results are like, off the chart, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's very impressive for one to start, for sure. Jake, I know that I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because I know, there's so much that goes into strategies of all kinds, and thinking about your audience. Can you tell us more about what you found, and what's been beneficial for brands to understand when it comes to developing, key strategies for different, whether it's digital, social, and tapping new audiences?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about innovation. And I go back to sort of the theme of, the name of the company and the theme of this conversation. I think what I'm hearing Ivonne say is that, they're very fluid, and they're very flexible. And they're also willing to test and learn a lot, which is, also a hallmark of really good companies. And so if you don't take that plunge, if you don't take that calculated risk, you're never going to know what that 200% increase at the Walmart page is going to look like. And so if you're fearful, you're never gonna see it. if you're saying whatever, like whatever happens, and we've just got to go there. And it's a calculated risk. This is not like, taking a jump off a cliff and getting into a pool of water. These are calculated risks, and enough to kind of say it's going to grow by 50% and then grows 4 times that. So I love hearing this, because it really speaks to a brand that is willing to take risks and really at the forefront, and sort of, I think one of your values is innovation. I wish that a lot of companies kind of approached it that way, and kind of operated with less constraints. And I think that's maybe one of the things that I kind of see at AFM.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I love this conversation. It's just my mind is just thinking what you're saying, because, and then retrieving what I just said before, is that it's like a dichotomy. We're a dichotomy. In one side, I'm telling you, we're super research oriented, and we make decisions based on research. But on the other hand, we're very innovative, which is kind of the opposite, because when you innovate, you don't know what is going to happen, because if you know, and it's because somebody else did it before and there's research about it, and in that case you're not innovating. So when you innovate, you really take a leap of faith, but it's a calculated risk, an educated calculated risk, but it's a risk. You don't know what is going to happen. Now, the advantage of digital is that you can course correct really quickly and really cheap. And have we done everything right from the first time? No, we have like some peaks that say, okay, we're going down, but we pick it up really quickly and reach cruise altitude again, and then go up. So that's the advantage of leveraging a digital space to do all kind of innovations.
I love that. Can you give us a hint, or maybe not a hint forward, but a snapshot of something that was innovative that you guys did in a digital perspective last year? I mean, you guys have done a couple things on the marketing front, but is there anything that you'd like to highlight, speaking of innovation, that happened last year?
So many things, but one that comes to my mind, and it, because it was a kind of a high profile, was Super Bowl. In a Super Bowl campaign, digital campaign, we integrated Watson IBM artificial intelligence tool, the personality insights. The theme of the campaign, following the TV spot, it's a story about dogs training humans using guacamole as a trick. So we matched that story. Yeah, it was so funny. So we matched that story with our digital activation, but it's really hard. I mean, how you bring all that, complex narrative into digital. So we use a lot of experiences. So what we did, and the reason what we did is because I have been watching artificial intelligence for a long time, because it's going to, at some point, have a very, very determinant role in marketing. So we want to experiment, which is a key word for innovation, experiment and learn about it. So we brought the personality insights capabilities of IBM Watson. And what it does is users will log in using their Twitter account, and their technology pulls all the data, the text from their Twitter accounts, and based on a criteria of like 20 different aspects, it determines the personality of the user. Okay, so then we partner also with adoptapet.com, which is a huge database that has information about all the pets that are cats and dogs that are for adoption in every zip code in the United States. So we work with a dog trainer, and we define the personality characteristics of the different breeds of dogs, and we map those with human characteristics. So we launched what is called Match.com, which, using artificial intelligence, we match dogs that were available for adoption with the humans that wanted to adopt a dog. So what makes this so special is that we didn't we didn't do it through IBM, which is when and pay per, they have so kind of a self-service tool online that we pay by engagement, and we activate it. But somehow they found out about it, and they called me. And I say the first thing that I think that their PR group within IBM, see, well, we were in trouble, because when you move fast, you break things, like there's somebody say there, and they wanted to know how that idea came about, because it was so creative, it was so innovative. And then the last thing I heard was that they sent an email to all their subscribers of IBM Watson, using our platform as an example of what a creative way can brands integrate Watson artificial intelligence. So that was, I think that was a highlight story in our 7 years of marketing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you guys know IBM. I think Jake and I have talked about this several times. IBM is one of our biggest investors, so we really take advantage of personality insights in a different way to, leverage or match brand and influencer partnerships. So, I mean, to hear that scaled out in the capacity that you guys did, that's so fun and and innovative and smart. I think at the end of the day, that you guys can definitely do that. I want to talk a little bit more about creative, and would love to understand what that process even is like. I'm sure it's there's the amount of research that you guys are doing is so impactful to this, but given where teams are, given remote work, how has creative changed, and what kind of research and analytic insights are you taking to make sure that those processes are still creative and effective?
That's for me.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to hear from both of you. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's a great question, because humans, especially in this industry, we have the tendency to jump and have ideas. I have an idea. I have an idea. I have a great idea. So I have to, I created for my team. I look what Lion Keynes was doing. I look what Stanford University is doing. I look at different sources and created our own proprietary innovation framework, and it's actually scalable. So you start with the first step, which is what is the opportunity or the challenge that you're trying to solve. If you don't find that, don't even start, because you can have the greatest idea, but if it's not useful, there's no point. So once you find what is the opportunity or the challenge, okay, this is it. What is the research that will take you to ideas? And then my team and my agencies develop all kind of research, and through that process, the ideas automatically will come. But when they come at that point, are going to be are going to come from the strategy. So there's no ways. I tell my team all the time, I don't know if you're familiar with the Karate Kid movie, when the sign right, sign left, say it's a painful process, but you have to do it. And when you finish doing it, you're going to realize that you're playing karate and having the greatest idea, but it's very, very well founded in the strategy.
Are brands taking advantage of that in your person? Go ahead, Jake.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
That was my question. I wanted to know more about what you're seeing, and is that a good framework to set you up for success creatively as a brand?
I mean, definitely. I mean, I have seen that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think that was for you, Jake, that question.
It was. Go ahead. I'll jump in.
No, I was just saying what I have seen is that, especially that when we struggle with productivity, and how can you tell an agency, don't take that much time for an idea? I mean, you need the time, you have to think. But when you think strategically, you waste less time. So in this industry, creating productively really pays off. So if you spend 15 hours, but you work 15 hours in doing research and analyzing research, ideas are going to come, and those ideas are going to be great and strong and well funded rooted into the strategy.
let me jump in now, because I think we're talking about, possibly creating a different creative development process and making it more strategic and making it, more efficient for you, for the brand. And one of the things that I've been advocating for is, we talk about insights being, it's this combination between art and science. And I think we have it backwards. I think it's the science and the art, right? And so when you put the science, when you have science leading the art, one, you have a process that is now fact-based. So what we present to the client is very much strategic and not just sort of great idea, or you have agencies that go in and present 3 ideas. They have 3 different insights and you have 3 great ideas. And then what happens out of that is, I like that insight. I like that idea. Can we go with 4? And so, at the end of the day, it's a sales job on the agency side. So client, the creative director says, yeah, I think we can make it work, and they'll make it, they'll tweak it. But that really is sort of a tactical approach and is also very qualitatively driven. What I'm advocating for is, why can't we go to the client with a tested insight? Why can't we measure these insights before they're actually presented to the client on the agency side? So if we have, before we actually go to you, Ivonne, why don't we meet? We have the technology, we have the databases, we have, the tools and the technique. We know how we can test these insights before we create the ideas. So why don't we measure the power of each different insight that now is tested against the relationship between insight and outcome, purchase intent. So why don't we go to you and say, we have 3 ideas or three insights, and this insight actually drives the process much better than the other 2. So let's drop the other 2.
Right.
And so let's just not waste your time. Let's just have a 15-minute conversation, present to you, because at some point we know that this R square at 0.6 is going to be better for the business compared to an idea that tested, with an R square of, 0.3. So at some point we know that anything over a 5 is going to work. So we just need to be a little strategic, smarter, more scientific. And that really changes the paradigm creatively. And so,
Totally.
so my point is, we can do this right now. If we have clients that have the courage to say, let's innovate so that we can drive better outcomes. And I don't need 3 people to justify the strategy. I don't need the research rationale to right? Because we're backing into an idea, and we're backing in, and we're using research to back into the justification. I'm now selling creative. What I need now is to really look at this from a very fact-based approach to say, we now know that these consumers, your target, looked at this insight. We got really good responses. The R squared to purchase intent is whatever. And so we built ideas around it, or a campaign around it.
Totally. I say, I don't need 5 ideas or 3. I need 1 strong idea. And I don't need 10 people to present an idea. I need 1 smart people presenting a good, well-funded idea. And when you really help brands and doing their homework, because if not, you put, your client in the position like a elementary school teacher. No, when the best that could happen is that, one idea come and say, this is the idea, and we are so sure because this is the foundation. So what this process do is that they eliminate the subjectivity out of the creativity. It doesn't matter if I may like personally, as the demographic that I represent, this idea, but if my target demographic is an idea that, like Jake was saying, is an idea that is going to be appealing to my target demographic, and you have the foundation to prove it, done. I mean, sold. And we avoid all that, I don't like it. Yeah, but no, I like this, but not that, like, you were saying. So it's a very, very efficient and effective process.
Ivonne, do you remember the days, and Tiffanie, you being in the business, mean, I remember, going to the client. This is just exactly the parallel. You go to the client with three print ads, and the ECD says, I want 3 sold. I want concept 3 sold. I like the headline. Well, you guess what? Today we can test the headlines. This is what we do with Facebook. We do this in social all the time. We do A/B tests, and you know what? It's not even about the creative director. It's not even about the creative person. It's about what the consumer says about the ad. And you know what? You may not like it, and so you may not, it's idea one that actually drove because there was something in there that you didn't see, and you thought 3 was more humorous and funny. And so you know what? And then who knows how many people are actually doing creative to put it into award shows. That's a whole different discussion. But if we're talking about the business, let the consumer tell you what that ad's going to do. Simple A/B testing, and we can do this ahead of presentations. We just have to build a different developmental process, and we make our art process a little bit more strategic, or a lot more strategic.
Totally. How much agencies spend on a pitch? It's just a little bit more of investment to do an A/B test, and you go bulletproof. And you removing subjectivity from a creative discussion is the best thing that can happen to all clients and agencies, because now you are talking about facts and what works, regardless of the personal opinions. If you have a room, usually with five people, we're going to have 5 different opinions, and usually the higher rank is going to prevail. So you eliminate that and really do what is better for the consumer.
I mean, you guys are speaking a lot of the brand ethos that we have even at Influential. It's not, we always say it's not about targeting every single person, but the right people for your brand, right? And even when it comes to leveraging influencers, since today's conversations have, heavily been around influencers too, it's about the right fits and making sure you can have the opportunity to test and see what works, who's resonating with our audience best when it comes to these sort of like ambassadors for your brand. So to ask that question, Ivonne, have you guys tested with sort of ambassadors or influencers, celebrities, when it comes to different marketing capabilities at Avocados?
Yeah, and actually we're doing a big test right now. It's launching next week, a platform called Avocado Nation. Imagine the Netflix of avocados. So we have all kind of videos. We have 70 videos from influencers plus celebrity, one Hispanic celebrity. We have a documentaries. We have over 100 videos, and then we have the intelligence behind, like Netflix have, for example. That's what we call it, the Netflix of avocados, with all these or consumer data platform and algorithms determining what is the right criteria that our consumer likes. Are long or short or demographic, or this influencer has more appeal for our demographic than this one or that one, because one influencer may be more appealing for one type of brand, and the consumers of one type of brand, and maybe don't have the same reaction from a different brand. So we're testing that on our own environment and having our own intelligence to then optimize. If one is very successful, we keep developing with that. So we start with 100 videos, and then we are going to start narrowing down based on the best performance.
That's good to hear. I think it's always nice to hear, when brands are, one, listening, and two, just being so adaptable to what consumers are actually wanting. I'm going to dive into some questions. We have some questions from the audience, and let's have both of you chime in. Someone wants to know, is social media sentiment a factor that you analyze when looking at your customers' social media sentiment?
Ivonne, take it.
We do. It's not a KPI. I mean, we're not going to optimize based on sentiment. And the reason is, like, for example, we're working with a celebrity right now, and the celebrity, we're seeing some negative comments, but we have a brand health tracker that we do every year, and the celebrity is performing extraordinarily in terms of brand recall, message recall, super high. the agency said, well, we have some negative comments. And my answer was like, look, anytime that you put a human being in a social media channel, you're going to have haters. That's a truth we have to live with. There's no, I think you even put like Mother Teresa and somebody is going to criticize her. So I don't really care, as long as the sentiment is decent. We're talking about over 90% usually is what we see. If we use it as a kind of a, is there a red flag? No, okay, fine, we're good. But we don't use it as a KPI.
That's good to hear. What about when it comes to predictions? This is definitely for both of you. I'm curious to know your thoughts. What about predictions for CPG food industry? What do you guys predict?
So predictions, or are you talking about like predictive analytics, or prediction that we have any predictions?
Honestly, maybe both, but specifically for the industry.
So, based on the numbers that we're seeing, I think that one big thing that is going to change, I call trends. I differentiate the phenomenons that are moving the industry forward I separate them between trends and forces, right? So if we look at trends, we talk about in-house fitness, for example, and our opportunities that, yes, brands needs to take advantage on and be in that environment because it's hot right now, and it probably is going to change some behaviors and some others like gaming and stuff. But there are others that I call forces that is not even optional. You have to get there because are going to change the way that humans interact with the world. And within those I include artificial intelligence, and this is across every single industry on earth. 5G is going to completely change the way we interact, especially with videos, gamings, and anything that is interactive. And the third one is e-commerce. E-commerce is not going back. It's just going to be a revolution that it was digital 20 something years ago. That's what we're going, and it's not even a choice. If anyone choose not to play in one of these territories, is definitely going to lose competitive advantage and stay behind and lag behind as a brand and within their own industry.
Would you agree, Jake? I know Chris
Yeah.
came in.
I can't really top this conversation.
Just a quick sidebar. They just threw me on here, but you guys are closing the day. So if you want to go on for like another 20 minutes, I'm here.
How many minutes? How much time do we have left? A couple?
Yeah.
Technically 10, but yeah, take your time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't really add much to this conversation. I think Ivonne and I mean is hitting all the high points. I mean, I think that that there's something to be said about health and wellness in the sort of post-pandemic world, whether you're in the food category or in the apparel category or soft drinks, whatever it is. Cleaning. I mean, I think there's going to be an angle there, and I think the way that this pandemic has impacted our shopping ability online is something to be seen. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to predict what companies do, depending on whether they see this as a blip or they see it as an opportunity in the long run. I mean, I definitely would love to see companies. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to have home delivery. I think it's there. It has been there, but we haven't really sort of pushed it. And so that throws sort of like a big wrench, right? Because if you're buying fruit or avocados, I mean, like I'm the one touching my apples, and I want to see that it's not, there's like 3 bruises on one, so I'm not going to pick up that one. So I want quality, right? So I'm, it's like the good old days where grandma would actually touch the cantaloupe and knock on the watermelon, and you're like, okay, it's just good. But like I think we can work around those consumer insights, right? If we're going to deliver, so I don't have to leave the house, and I'm not afraid of the virus. And so there's going to be people again next year during cold and flu season who are going to wear the mask, and hopefully we'll be out of the pandemic. But Like there's an opportunity here that I can't even, articulate because I'm not in that trend formation discussion, right? And those companies that are like Ivonne, like, you're sort of at the forefront and you're pushing yourself to think about like what could be, and how do we, drive that opportunity. So, I mean, I'm pretty excited. I think that, there are silver linings out of these issues, but hopefully companies that step up are going to provide value and some leadership for their consumers.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely want to leave it off with one final question from you both. I'm interested to know what you guys are looking forward to, right? From a personal, professional, in your work, in your roles, what are you guys looking forward to this year?
I always look forward to the discovering that thing that I don't know yet. So and things are moving really, really fast, and are going to move faster as technology advances, because we use technology to create more technology. So the pace is just it accelerates in incrementals. But I'm especially excited about everything that is happening in the field of data and predictive analytics, and how we get ourselves, at least brands like ours, that small brands with small, less resources, how we get ourselves out of our comfort zone, actually getting into a very uncomfortable zone, trying to understand that space, and working with machine learning and or consumer data platforms that are very in the rise right now, and really instead of, in the past, I mean, sometime in the present, is understanding what our consumers are wanting now so we can provide it. But we are moving more and more toward what our consumers are going to want and need in the future. And that's why, if we train well those machines, which is not an easy thing to do, they can do the predictions for us. And it's something that we have never seen in the history of marketing, how we can see the future and react based, not in the past, like is the traditional research, but how we can react to the future. So that's one of the things that excites me the most.
So, and just to kind of talk to the other side of the coin, I'm going to talk about sort of organizations, because I think that there's a consumer part to marketing, and then really it's about how well organizations respond to the consumer trends and how they meet those needs. My hope is that companies don't let their foot off the pedal in terms of diversifying their stakeholders, their employees, and I'm hoping that companies see this as a long-term strategy, not this sort of politically driven, I must do this, I must hire and nominate somebody for a DEI position. So I'm hopeful that companies see the growth opportunity, and really it's a must-have. I think that going from a monolithic organization to a multicultural organization is the only way that companies are going to win in the 21st century, exactly for the reasons that Ivonne's talking about, because the world that we live in is multicultural, and organizations that were built in the 20th century won't survive the 21st century. So there's work to do. There's work to do.
So many gems. Thank you guys for your insight. It was such a pleasure to talk to both of you. I love these conversations that we can really get deep. So I appreciate you guys. This wasn't enough time, but I thank you guys. We can go on forever.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys
Thank
all
you.
so much.
Thank you. Thanks,
You
Chris.
too.
Yeah,
Thank
have
you
a
guys
great
so
weekend.
much.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Speak to you guys soon. All right, so we made it all the way to the end of it. All of you that stayed tuned in the entire time, we thank you. We hope you learned something great here. It was a great day of speakers. We hope you'll join us again next month, March 25th, for another full day of interviews with amazing brand marketers. We also hope you'll join us Tuesday at 11:15 Eastern Time for Brand Innovators' second annual live cast on the future of food and beverage. We'll be joined by marketing leaders from Clean Cause, Health Aid Kombucha, Recess, Pernod Ricard, Cava, Sur La Table, and many more. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.